computer. Hello, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with my brother Yahusha here. We are going to be trying our best, Yahusha willing, and try to present this part one today. Reason I think it's definitely going to be a part one is because this is a lengthy topic, lengthy study. This is the mystery of Achad. Um, that's the Hebrew word for one, or how a lot of people want to say unity. And again, that we could even go there real quick. I want to actually start there real quick after this introduction here that you have here. I want to go straight to the word Akkad in Deuteronomy 6 and show how that's a misunderstanding of the meaning of that word. Uh, so but here, my brother has here Proverbs 18:13. A person who gives an answer before he listens or, hears the other side, there's nothing more foolish, nothing that gives him more shame. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and be not exalted in your own wisdom. In all your ways know him, and he will direct your paths. John 3:12. I have told you earthly things, and you do not believe. How will you believe heavenly things? Meaning, I showed you basic level understandings, black and white. I've showed you black and white things in my word, physical word. Yahuwah's no, Yahuwah's no, no. Yahuwah's physical word. So, yeah, no. So how are you going to understand things from heaven? How are you going to understand deeper matters? How are you going to understand if Yahuwah shows us, okay, black and white, that's his character, that's who he is, and you don't want to receive that, why would he show you heavenly things? Okay, so usually this topic goes into other problems that individuals have with wanting to put their own spin on other false doctrines they have, because usually it's never one issue. It's never one issue. It usually has to do with the integrity of taking Yahuwah's word at face value. No. Okay, so we have here 1 Corinthians 2:7-11. But if we speak the wisdom of Yahuwah in a mystery, wisdom having been hidden, which Yahuwah ordained before the ages for our esteem, and which none of the rulers of this age knew. For if they had, they would have not executed the um the esteem of Yahuwah. But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear has heard, nor has entered the heart of man the things which Yahuwah has prepared for those who love him. But Yahuwah has revealed them to us through his Spirit, for the Spirit searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. For among men knows no, except the spirit of man, which is no. A man knows the things of man, except the spirit of man which is in him. Even so, he knows the thing. No one knows the things of Yahuwah except the spirit of Yahuwah. Basically, it means that of your flesh, you will not know. No, no one knows the spirit of Yahuwah according to our flesh. Meaning, we don't know the mind of Yahuwah according to our flesh. Um, we can't fully understand his counsel. So basically it's trying to say that only through his spirit can you understand these things. And again, there's other scriptures for that will at some point in time, maybe not today's show, um, about that only his spirit can reveal the doctrine of the oneness. Okay. You can only understand it through his ruach. You can't understand it through your philosophy, Greek philosophy, or philosophy of men, according to Paul, spoils you. It will not allow you to understand the word. It will not allow you to understand Yahuwah's perfect heavenly word. No. Um, so this is a big before I want to get to the husband thing, I definitely want to just go really quick to Deuteronomy 6 and just show you guys that in the Shema where it says Yahuwah is one Yahuwah, this is clearly a oneness verse. It's not anti-oneness. If you actually read it in English in order, it's saying, "Hear, O Yashral, Yahuwah our Elohim is one Yahuwah." So, why would think about this for a second? Why would Moshe have to say this to Israel if all you had was the Father? If the Father is only known as Yahuwah and Yahusha has a completely different name, completely different person, why are they confused? See, this is where people don't pay attention to certain verses close enough like this. Okay. Masha is telling them, he's confirming to them, Yahuwah is one. He is one Yahuwah. Okay. Meaning that Debar Yahuwah, who would come and dwell with man in human form, is the same Yahuwah as the Father. That's essentially what he's saying. Okay. Number two, when you look at the word one, is really why we went here. Okay, so you look at the word one, right? Achad. It doesn't always mean unity. Okay. Anyone that tells you that, anyone that tells you that is ignoring one of its definitions. Okay. Number one definition, right? Numeral. Numeral. What does that mean? Number. That means physicality, one. Okay. Then it says properly united. Okay. So what I've learned early in this walk, guys, you always try to take to the best of your ability the number one definition of a word. You never, ever, ever, out of whether it's selfishness or out of bias, take a lesser, least used definition. Okay. And I'll show you why. Because the Greek equivalent, right? I'll show you how the Greek equivalent means the same exact thing. Okay, John 10:30. All right. Because this is the Greek equivalent of Achad, okay? And again, it means numeral, not unity. Okay. So you go here, right, with the Strongs, Heis or Heis, G1520. A primary numeral, one. Not and in this case, in the Greek equivalent, there is no mention of unity in the definition at all. At all. So again, if you actually look at the context, and again, why would Deuteronomy 6:4, if they're stressing on that they have one creator, Yahuwah and the word is one together, one creator, one person, why would he be talking about unity? Okay. It doesn't even make sense to interpret it that way. Okay. And almost every English translation says it this way. I think the only one that tries to reword it to make it match like their own understanding is the ISR. Is one of the few that do it. They'll try to reword it. Hero Yashrel Yahuwah our Elohim Yahuwah is one, rather than saying Yahuwah is one Yahuwah. Okay, because if it's worded in the English like this, Yahuwah our Elohim is one Yahuwah, then you see that Masha's answering something. He's explaining something to the people, saying, "Don't be confused. Yahuwah is not two; he's one." Okay, so what does that mean? That means that there was confusion. There was up to this point, mind you. Remember the messenger who brought them out of Egypt, right? Yahuwah says, "I will send my messenger." But then when the messengers bring them out of Egypt, that messenger is being called Yahuwah. Okay, so there's definitely confusion up to this point. Go ahead, brother.
Um, I was going to say two things. You are cutting in and out pretty bad.
Oh, okay.
It's here and there. It's not. I won't say pretty bad, but here and there you're cutting in and out.
Let me see here. It could be. Yeah, I didn't realize I wasn't on hotspot. Hold on a second.
If we still had that link, I mean, I don't quote me on it because I don't have the link anymore. You'd have to go and do your own research. But as far as I know, as far as I understand, there's only like two or three places where Achad is used as a unit, or as the majority of the time it is used as a it's used in a more numeral definition, numerary, one, like one pen or one marker.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, Strong's is even showing that, like I showed on the screen. Strong's like literally shows numeral as the primary definition. So I don't understand. There's got
If
to be a
you're
bias
trying
involved.
to,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, if you're trying to show it on your screen, the mystery of Yahuwah Achad is still on the screen.
Yeah, sure. So let's go back to see here. Go back to the Strongs here. So you go to here. Let's go back to Achad. See, before it says united, it says a numeral from H258. So the primary definition is a numeral. Then it says properly united. That is one. So technically, this is the first definition. The way Strong's usually works, they put the first definition first. So you got this one and then united. So that's what I was trying to point out. And it actually agrees with the Greek word from John 10:30. So you literally have both both words, Greek and Hebrew, saying it's numeral. So they're the only way you're interpreting it um as a unit is you're taking the secondary definition over the primary, which I mean, anyone that knows anything about like definitions of words, that's very dangerous to do. You always want to take the what do they call it? Not law of primacy, but law of precedence. I think they call it in Bible college. The biblical hermeneutic law of precedence, that the first original definition is the definition you should be using. For example, I'll just give you guys an example, even though this is a little bit off topic, but just to give you guys an example. Um, because a lot of people like the whole Sethite theory nonsense, okay? In the Hebrew, it's Bana Elohim, right? Okay. The primary definition according to the Septuagint, was messengers, not human beings. Okay. So when you look at Genesis 6, in the same type of concept, we're talking about the oneness, you take the primary definition of a word. Okay. You never should take a secondary definition unless the primary definition, I will say this, unless the primary definition doesn't make sense with the context, you should always go with the primary definition. So, that's what we're trying to say here. So hopefully you can understand what I'm trying to say here. So that there it's either it's the primary definition, which usually sorry about that. It sorry guys about that. It seems to always drop me when I'm switching connections. I really hate that about Zoom. They really need to fix that. There should be a way to stay on when you're going from Wi-Fi to hotspot. So yeah, so I just wanted to show you guys from Deuteronomy 6:4 and John 10:30. It's very clear that the both the Hebrew and the Greek means numeral. So there should be no controversy about that. Okay. Um, and again, if we had enough time today, we could really even build on Deuteronomy 6:4 and go to other places, which we don't have time for right now because I do want to focus on the marriage thing first. But just for those that want to know, you can match that understanding, that literal word for word understanding of Deuteronomy 6:4, along with passages like what you got Zechariah 14. In that day, Yahuwah will be one and his name one. So again, there was always this concept in the Tanakh that you had the invisible spirit form of Yahuwah and you had the physical form that was sent to earth, Yahusha. And it's that simple. It's the concept of the physical embodiment of the Father was sent to earth, while the spirit form, the Father, was up in heaven on his throne simultaneously. And so we see that all throughout the Tanakh, whether it's Zechariah 3:2, whether it's Daniel 7:9, like we talked about this the other day, if you follow the ministry, we talked about this the other day how um according to a rabbinical Orthodox Jewish rabbi, which he has no bias, he doesn't believe in the New Testament, he has no bias. Okay, he's a Orthodox Jewish rabbi, admitted that at one point in Judaism they believed in this oneness concept, or I should say not Judaism, the original Hebrew people believed in this oneness concept where you had a visual physical form of the Father on earth while Yahuwah's up there in heaven. So to the naked eye of someone that doesn't understand scripture, they would think there's two separate Yahuwahs in the Old Testament because you would have, you know, Genesis 19:21, for example. Yahuwah on earth poured down sulfur and brimstone from Yahuwah out of heaven. You looking for something, Mom? No, I'm using your burner. Oh, okay. Okay. So now we're at who is our husband? And go ahead, brother.
I just wanted to say, when you think about it, like, right, if Yahuwah is always on his throne, but he has an embodiment on earth, this embodiment on earth was non, it was something that was never seen before. It was something that Yahuwah had never done before he created man and before he started interacting. So, in that sense, he is a son. In that sense, he is brought forth, but he's still Yahuwah.
Yep, praise Yahuwah, praise Yahusha. So yeah, what brother is trying to say is from Genesis 1 up until that point in Genesis 19, rarely did Yahuwah cohabitate with us. Rarely he created mankind to be with him, but when fall happened, there was a point from when the fall happened from like Genesis 3 to that point where Yahuwah, because of our sin, we were separated from him. We couldn't be in his presence. So from the expulsion from the garden on, there was this concept of okay, Yahuwah hasn't really revealed himself in that form again. I think the first time, probably before the fall, would have been Adam and Kua. That Yahuwah revealed himself as Yahusha to Adam and Kua. When you really look at the Targums, it hints to that when it says Yahuwah walked with them in the garden in the cool of the day, he walked with Adam. That was Yahusha. Okay. Um, so we could even you know what? Let's actually go there real quick just to show you. Show you what I'm talking about. So I know my screen share is not working right now. It's acting up. Every time I exit out of a program, it seems to do that. It's stupid. Even though I click on the whole screen to share the whole screen, it still ends up screwing up. So I don't understand that. No, no, no. Well, it should be. Easy. Okay, so let's just go to, and this is my Kindle here, so that's why I like Kindle so much. It really helps our studies like this. So, I forget if it's let me try the Jerusalem one first, which by the way, at some point, okay, download limit reach, you jerk. All right, whatever. Okay, you know what? Hold on a second. Hold on a second though. I think there's another way I can do this. Hold on a second. E-Bible. Found this out the other day. So go to ebible.org and they have a PDF of the 3-in-1. So this is Unkelos, Pseudo Jonathan, and Jerusalem Targum 3-in-1. So let me just go to Genesis 3:9. Okay. Okay. So, all right. Here we go. You can see this right here. Um, and they heard the voice of the word of Yahuwah walking in the garden. So this is what I mean. So the ancient Hebrew concept of this verse would have been this is you, before they knew it was Yahusha, okay? Because these targums orally go pre BC or pre Yahusha's birth time period, okay? Orally speaking. So the Debar Yahuwah here is being mentioned as the one walking in the garden with Adam. Okay, the voice, and they heard the voice of the word Debar Yahuwah Alua walking in the garden in the evening of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from before Yahuwah Elua among the trees of the garden. So this actually directly identifies Yahusha as Yahuwah. Why? Because it's calling Debar Yahuwah the same person as Yahuwah Elua, or if you prefer, Yahuwah Elohim, which I mean, most of you would agree that's the Father, right? Yahuwah Elohim is the Father. Okay. So it's calling Debar Yahuwah Elohim. Okay. So that's why I mean these are important things to understand. So basically, I wanted to just show you that real quick because brother mentioned that about him not revealing himself. I believe from since then, when sin happened, then Yahuwah wasn't really doing that much with mankind until Genesis 19. That was kind of like a big, or you could say maybe Genesis 18, technically, because he met Abraham, okay, in Genesis 18. So, but there's a gap of time in Bereshit where Yahuwah was like, I don't know, man. Yahuwah was probably being standoffish because he was seeing how wicked humankind was becoming. And Yahuwah knew that, if he came down there in his fullness, we could not survive. He tells Masha this. He says, you can't see me face to face and live. So, and all that. Because Yahuwah can't have sin in his presence. In his esteem and in his presence, he can't have sin there. So, anyway, so who is the husband? Who is our husband? Yahuwah is our husband, right? And I got another Targum verse, brother, to actually add to this. Let me just add on the last bullet point here. Exodus 20, Jerusalem Targum. So, and I'll show you guys after reading brothers' verses what the Jerusalem Targum of Exodus 20 says when Yahuwah is giving the law at Sinai, basically the marriage covenant. Okay. Turn, O backsliding children. Jeremiah 3:14 says Yahuwah, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city, two of a family, bring you into Zion or Sion. Isaiah 54:5, for your maker is your husband, Yahuwah Sabaoth. Again, Yahuwah of heaven's armies. And I would make a reference here to the heaven's armies, Revelations 19:13, that even Yahuwah Sabaoth is indicating Yahusha is also the husband, because Yahusha is Yahuwah of heaven's armies. A lot of people don't realize that in the Tanakh. For your maker's your husband, Yahuwah of heaven's armies is his name, and your redeemer, the set apart one of Yasharel. Again, that's a oneness thing right there. Who is the set apart one of Israel? Yahusha in certain manuscripts is called the set apart one of Yahuwah or of Elua. Even the demons called him that, and they understood who he was. So the set apart one of Yasharal is also identifying the Father and the Son as the one set apart one of Yasharal in Scripture. The Elohim of the whole earth shall be called. And then note here Isaiah 54, 5 to 17, for those that are viewing on and reading on. That's for you guys to read. Okay, Revelations 19:13 again. The armies of heaven follow Yahusha. Yahusha is Yahuwah Sabayut. Okay. So again, that's important to understand that a lot of these titles in the yeah, I might try that. See here. I don't have a great camera anyway, so let me try that. Okay, so uh Hosea 2:16, so that's Hosea. It shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, you shall call me my husband, no longer call me my Baal or Baal. Okay. And Baal means Lord. So basically, no longer will you call me my master. Okay. Which again points to Yahusha. Again. Because what did they call him in the New Testament, right? Master. Master, what are we to do? You know? So even that points Yahuwah to Yahusha. Now, what I'm gonna try to do here is maybe use Safaria.org to kind of, or Or you know what? Targum.info might be a good one because you can actually see the separation between the three Targums in it. Let me see. Just bear with me, guys. Oh yeah, they got the Psalms on that website too. So yeah, that's a really good. This is a really good site for the Targums. I recommend it. It's very good. So we're just gonna look very quick at the Exodus 20, giving of the Ten Commandments to show you guys that yes, it's Yahuwah is the original husband, but Yahusha is also the original husband according to the Targums. So again, to not contradict the Basora, they have to be one person. Okay. Let's see here. How do I get here? That drives me crazy. It never used to be this hard. Okay. Targum. All right, let me just go to Safari. I don't want to waste too much time here. All right. There. I really recommend though, if you got time, download that PDF of the 3-in-1 Targum there. It's really nice, especially for people that don't can't afford all three, because it does get kind of expensive. Even the paperbacks by Tove Rose is kind of expensive. And his is nothing special. I mean, his is just a you know, he adapted it from Etheridge pretty much. Okay. Let's, let's see here. Second Temple. Uh, it might be under Tanakh. Let me just see here. There we go. Jerusalem Targum. Okay. Which this is one of the oldest ones out there. It's extremely fragmented. I personally believe this one could have been one of the very earlier Targums when you talk about the dates because it's so fragmented. Now, this is interesting. So, who's the husband, right? And the word of Yahuwah, or Debar Yahuwah, Memra Yahuwah, whatever you prefer, spoke all the excellency of these words, saying, so the words are not Debar Yahuwah, the commands are not Debar Yahuwah, they're his words. Okay, so this is Yahusha speaking the law. So for people that want to say the logos is, we haven't even got to that point yet. We're probably not even going to get to that part of the study today. But just for those that want to say the logos, or logos just means utterance, this would contradict that right here. Okay, you got Debar Yahuwah, a person giving the law at Sinai. Go ahead, brother.
To that point, that it's more than just an utterance, that these are actually his words. You have in the renewed covenant, you have Yahusha saying that he's not going to judge anybody, but there's one that's going to judge him in that day, even the words that he speaks. So
Yep, yep. So again, Yahusha was referencing this stuff. He was claiming to be the Memra Yahuwah that's in their Targums. This is what people don't understand. It's not that Yahusha was saying the Pharisees were wrong for expecting for the lack of a better word, a divine Messiah. They weren't in error about that. He was claiming to be that Debar Yahuwah in this version of the Torah. He was claiming to be that person. They had a problem because they wanted him to be like I guess you could say almost like a Metatron. They wanted him to be like this, conquering king, that heavenly being, this, son of man from Daniel 7:9 that was going to defeat their enemies right away. You got to understand, like these guys, the Pharisees were into rabbinical tradition. They were into rabbinical understandings of who the Messiah was supposed to be. So the problem was, though, even though they understood the Messiah was supposed to be this Son of Man pre-existent character, they had all these extra prerequisites. So a lot of people a lot of people want to say, oh, they didn't understand who, like they want to use it like the Pharisees were just didn't they misunderstood who he was saying he was. No, they understood. They just couldn't accept that it was a lowly son of a carpenter, or that his stepdad was a carpenter. They didn't even want to accept that he was, the basically, what was the word I'm looking for? That he was this lowly, poor son of a carpenter. Okay. That's what they had an issue with. When you look at their own writings and you look at even Judaism today, that was their problem. It wasn't that like they had this understanding of a human deliverer like a Moses. Okay. They knew the Messiah had to be more than a Moses. Okay. I mean, that's just a fact. They had this and go ahead, brother. I don't know if you I saw you had a hand just for a quick second. I don't know if you wanted to say
I put
something.
it down. I'm
Oh,
okay.
okay. Um but yeah, so you guys can do your research for that yourself and test these targums out for yourself. It's readily available with all these websites. So this is something they believed in. This is something Yahusha confirmed who he was who they were expecting. That's the deception. Who they expected is who he was. Who they expected him to be, or expected the Son of Man to be, from books like the Book of Enoch and the Targums and all that. He was that person in real life. He was this version of the Most High in human flesh. They knew I mean, that's literally what they expected. Especially when you read the Targum of the Prophets, it shows that the 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 Messiah was supposed to be more than just a mortal man, in their opinion. They never expected it just to be a mortal man. They would have never expected that from the scriptures. That there's nowhere in the scriptures that would have gave them that idea. Anyway, so Yahusha is our husband. 2 Corinthians 11:2. For I am zealous over you, over righteous zeal, for I espouse to you one husband, that I may present you as chaste virgin to the Messiah. And for those out there that want to say, well, Paul's not my Messiah and all that, the thing is, Paul is not making up something new. He's not making up something new, okay? The Targums show that he's not like putting his own opinion forth about Yahusha being the one husband. That Yahusha is Yahuwah, he's the one husband. They're in their own culture, they understood that the father is the original husband, and the father has to die for them. It's that simple. And they understood that. Okay, it wasn't the mystery was that Yahusha is the father in human flesh. That's the mystery. But the idea of like that the husband was going to have to take them back and die for them, they already had a concept of that from Hosea. They already had a concept of that Yahusha himself said, I'm going to take you back. I'm divorcing you, but I'm going to take you back. So it's not like they didn't know that the father was going to have to die for them, or that something was going to have to happen for them to get taken back. They know the Torah. It's not like Paul was speaking to Gentiles only. Go ahead, brother.
I mean, it's all over the Torah. Even if you look beyond like what is actually written. I mean, it's not looking beyond what is written. Let me take that back. Um, like you look at the names, the genealogies, right? It clearly shows Yahuwah coming down in flesh. When you look at the names and you break down the meanings of the names, when you look at the Hebrew in the ancient Hebrew in the pictograph, like in just the word Badashit, it clearly shows Yahuwah coming down in flesh, and and it's all over. And I definitely think that they knew. I think a lot of the people that weren't Pharisees, just the common people, they might not have all known as far as what the scripture says, but they still, probably you had a lot of the Pharisees. What's that verse that it says you shut up the door of knowledge? Um, you probably had a lot of the Pharisees that were, twisting the scriptures and um, making it to be where people weren't able to see that. even though you still had a lot of people that accepted him, you had a lot of people that rejected him. And I would venture to say that they probably rejected them because they couldn't see it in Scripture, and the reason they couldn't see it in Scripture is because you had the Pharisees twisting the Scriptures.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Pharisees, once they realized who Yahusha was, their descendants eventually get rid of what's called what was coined in their own culture as the two powers in heaven, or I would more coin it as the two roles of the one power in heaven. That second temple, 600 BC to 200 BC belief system, which we just call it a different name, oneness today. It's pretty much the same thing. They rejected it after Yahusha came. It was after Yahusha came that about 200 years later they said, nah, you know, we can't have this. We can't have this somewhere around 200 AD. And that's an Orthodox Jewish rabbi today saying that. That history shows that they didn't really reject the oneness. Even the rabbinical system did not reject the oneness until about 200 AD. So you're talking about a way, way later after Yahusha's ascension. So this is what people don't realize is this modern idea um, in Judaism today, or the people that want to claim they're Hebrews but they're not, that they're Yahudim and they're not. The spiritual forefathers of the synagogue of Satan, which that's basically their religion, is the synagogue of Satan. The original rabbis that came way before them, a lot of the doctrines they hold to today, they would not believe. Um, After Yahusha came, they got rid of the virgin birth. I mean, you guys can read it for yourselves. You can look it up for yourselves. And I just want to show you guys something from YouTube. I'll give you guys a link here. I know we don't have time to really go through this video. So I just want to give you guys a link here that will be in the description on a video that's really, really beneficial about this historical facts. Um, this guy made a video called "Why You Should Use the Septuagint." He's like, I think he's like an Orthodox Christian or something, um, Greek Orthodox. Okay, so let me just see if I can find it real quick. This is on one of our playlists as well. Um, I just need to find the exact video. Yeah, this topic's getting so popular now. Like I had to scroll down the whole page just to find the video because
About 6 years before.
you have like 100 videos on this topic. So this video I really like. It shows all the Catholic Church Cersei fathers, them mentioning without a bias, because they really don't have a bias. They're just mentioning historical facts of how the rabbis were changing the text. And that's basically what was happening. The original Septuagint, even what was happening was you had new Greek copies coming about. You had new Greek versions coming about. Um, so basically, these new Greek versions that they based on the Septuagint, they were being malicious to the scriptures, according to multiple Circe fathers. That's what they claimed, that these Yahudim rabbis were doing it on purpose. They were removing books from the scriptures, this and that, and it's very. They back it up. The guy backs it up with facts, with quotes, historical quotes, cites sources. Okay, so that's the reality about that. The moment they switched from the Septuagint, they were clearly trying to go away from what we would call as a that the Messiah figure was supposed to be a heavenly being in human flesh. Okay, not just a mere mortal. Okay, basically anyone out there that's Unitarian, by the way, if you claim to be a Unitarian, because I've seen one or two people that I met in this Hebrew roots walk that claims to be Unitarian, you are literally agreeing with the Pharisees. You are literally going with the synagogue of Satan and the type of Messiah they want you to believe in. Okay. That's their whole point of making the Masoretic text. That's their whole point of changing verses, talking about in Psalms 40 that a body was prepared for him. Okay, all verses like that show that the who the Messiah was supposed to be. Okay, so anyway, so we talked about 2 Corinthians 11:2, chased version to Yahusha. There came unto one of the seven messengers, which had the seven vials, the seven last plagues, talking to me, saying, "Come here, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife." So again, if he's not the father, you have issues with the New Testament. This is why people end up rejecting the New Testament, because usually people that do, and I'm not saying every person that this is going to be the case, a lot of people have fallen away because they don't want to accept the oneness. They're obstinate and they don't want to accept it. So what will happen is they'll think that the New Testament is idolatry. No. So anyway, who is the first and the last? This is another big topic. So I'm just checking the time to see here because I think we'll definitely have to cut it off like within another hour. Gotta do something. So um who's the first and the last? Isaiah 44:6. Thus says Yahuwah, the king of Yasharel, the Lua of armies. Again, this is referencing Yahuwah Sabaoth here, okay? Which we already talked about, Revelations 19:13. Yahusha is the Yahuwah of heaven's armies, okay? That delivers them. I am the first, I am the last. Besides me, there's no Alua. Again, if he's not the father, you got to throw away John 20:29. And I would put John 20:29 here. Because again, Thomas calls Yahusha what? My master and my what? Alua, right? Isaiah 48:12. Hear me, O Jacob, and Yashar, whom I call. I am the first, I am the last. I endure forever. Oh, wait a minute. Where have I seen that before in the New Testament? I was dead, but now I'm alive forever? And who said that? The Son of the Father, Mom?
The Son.
Oh, wait a minute. But that means they're the same person. Go ahead, brother. I'm having a little fun with people right now.
Yeah.
Having a
With the
little
verse
fun
that
with the
says,
shills out there.
besides me, there is no Lua. Yahuwah said, besides me, there is no Lua. Well, what does John 1:1 say? In the beginning was the word Lua.
Interesting. The living one. I never caught that before. Revelations 1:18. I am the living one. What does Ahaya Ashara Haya mean? I am he who exists. Even Revelations 1:18, Yahusha is calling himself the living one, the all-existent one. Okay, what is going on Microsoft Edge today? You always got to give us a problem here. Always. I don't know what's going on here. Come on, bro. Yeah. This is weird, man. Weird. And I took my camera off just to see if that's the issue. And I'm on hotspot. They should not be doing this right now. 1 second. Bro, what are you doing? I don't know. I might have to use a different browser or something because it's either that or it's it looks like Zoom is acting up. Why is Zoom acting up? I'm just gonna copy and paste it and get another browser up because this is crazy. So basically, I was trying to show to you guys Revelations 1:18 is a direct correlation. The same person is saying he's the eternal one, okay? And you can see this in Michael 5:2. You can see this, okay, there, Yahusha is the one that has been from eternity, which means that he has to be the Father, because the only people that have lived from eternity And you can make an argument. I know a lot of Jewish people are going to be mad at me, but the angels have not existed forever. Okay? So you can't say it's, a messenger or that he's just a regular heavenly being. Yahuwah is the only one that's lived forever. Okay? I mean, we should all be able to agree on that. He's the one that has no beginning and ending. Same thing with Yahusha. So if they both have no beginning and ending, they have to be the only person that has been here since before time was. That's the way it works. You can't you can't have someone who's not the one that has lived forever be the one living forever. It just doesn't work that way. So there's no other being in scripture that scripture says has lived from eternity. Okay. Um there's no other being. The messengers were created on day 4 or day 5, right? So that means they didn't live forever. They haven't existed forever. The messengers were created at some point. Even Job 38, I think, says it. When he made the messengers, all my stars, when I made the messengers, all my stars praised me. What does that mean? It means the moment he made the messengers, they praised him. So they have a beginning. So again, this is why it's so dangerous, in my opinion, to lower Yahusha to almost to like a Metatron lesser Yahuwah or just a messenger, because there's no way that he could be just a messenger or just a heavenly being. It makes no sense. That contradicts scripture of itself. So there's really only one option you have here with Revelations 1:18. If Yahuwah is the only one that has lived forever, he's the only eternal. Yahusha lives forever and has lived forever. Okay. So it says here, Revelations 1:18, and that lives, and I was dead, and behold, I am living from age to age, or eternity to eternity, you could say, and have the keys of death and Hades. Okay. That's a big thing too. Could someone that's not Yahuwah have authority to keys and death? Could he be able to strip that away from the devil if he wasn't Yahuwah? I would argue I don't think he could if he wasn't the father. So this to me is even a hint. It's not directly saying it, but it's a hint that he has to be the father. Because for you to take authority away like that, I could be wrong, but I don't think a regular messenger would have that type of authority. Go ahead, brother.
Um, it's not on the doc, but I would like to add it to the doc for another time. Who raised, or maybe we could just touch on it right now because there's only a few handful of verses in it. Who raised Yahusha from the dead?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one. You have certain verses saying the Father did, and then you have certain other verses that say Yahusha himself did it. So for Scripture to not be broken, because Yahusha himself says the Scripture cannot be broken, like Scripture of itself cannot be broken, and for Scripture to align with one another, he has to be the Father in that aspect as well, because you have it saying Yahuwah whom raised up Yahusha in one verse, and then in another book it will say who raised himself up. Or I think Yahusha in John somewhere says, I will raise myself up. And then that even gets into another side topic that shows he's the father by, can someone who's not the father be the resurrection and the life? Can he be the one to give the resurrection to everyone else if he's not the father? Can a lesser being do that? Can a lesser being give salvation to people?
He said, I have the power to put
Yeah.
myself down.
Yeah.
Power to raise
Yeah.
myself.
So let me see here. I think the one I'm referring to here is, I will you destroy this temple I will raise it. He doesn't say the Father. In 3 days. Now, the Father did do it because he's the Father. But the point is that he's saying he himself will raise himself up on the third day. Go ahead, brother.
Which means that he has to have had authority over death even before he was resurrected.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing to take consideration to is I know you don't have it mentioned here, but when you look at who is the head of the heavenly council, this should be like another side topic on this doc. Who is the head of the council? Who is the head of the 70 messengers in Deuteronomy 32:8? Because I'll just show you real quick. This is important because when you connect Enoch to Psalms 82 and Deuteronomy 32, it's showing that Yahusha is the one being worshipped by the council. He's the one being worshipped. And if he's the one being worshipped and he's not the Father, then the Father is having these messengers worship someone else that's him, and then the Father would be sharing his esteem, which he says he doesn't do. Okay, so I'm just going to show you something real quick. This is quoted from Paul, by the way, as the he. Okay, the he that's in Hebrews 1:6. So I'm going to show you the quote from the Septuagint, which again the Masoretes took out. I wonder why. Rejoice, you heavens, and let all the messengers of Elua worship him. Oh, pump the brakes. Worship who? So obviously we would say here this has to be talking about the Father, right? In Deuteronomy 32. Let's go to Hebrews 1:6, where Paul gives you the he or the him. Okay, so right here he says, now if they're not the same person, then you cannot accept Paul as a legitimate apostle. You can't work your way around it and say, well, it's just his opinion, his letters are not inspired. No, it's one or the other. Either he's a legitimate apostle or he's not. Okay? Hebrews 1:6. When he shall have brought again the first begotten into the world, so the him has to be the first begotten. And let all the messengers of Elua worship him. So he's talking about Yahusha, the first begotten. He's saying let all the messengers worship him. If he's not the Father, then you have idolatry there. That's why it's a big deal. Okay. And interesting to note, I forget, I don't have it written down or typed up here. In the book of Enoch, to add on to what Paul says, to show you that even in their apocryphal literature that they would have had in the first century, it talks about, I think, correct me if I'm mistaken, bro, but there's a chapter in Enoch, I think it's 34 or 32 or whatever. It says, wisdom took his seat among the messengers, in the midst, even, meaning the main throne in heaven. Wisdom sat on. So even in Enoch, it's showing that Yahusha is Yahuwah, and by default is the head of the heavenly council. And that's why in Deuteronomy 32:43, it's saying, let all the messengers worship him. Go ahead, brother.
And what would you say first begotten means?
Oh yeah, let's go to that real quick. So yeah, a lot of people will try to say begotten just means he's like, they'll use it in human terms and say that's just someone that was, you beget children, or they'll find some way to make it like they'll try some way to humanize it. And the problem is that only begotten according to Hebrew culture, according to the Aramaic New Testament, means something completely different than what we have been taught in our Greek culture as begotten. Okay. In the Hebrew culture, from what my research historically is, begotten means to be that very same substance. Okay, so the only way you can compare a human type of father-son relationship to that is if you had a son that literally is your spitting image, your very same essence, equal to you in essence. That's the only way. Which us as human beings, there's no such thing. Unless you have a son that's like a clone of you, there's no such way. I don't even like to use the word clone, but it's the closest English term to what begotten really means. It means he's exact duplicate. He's exact essence, physical representation, essence of that person, which again, Paul talks about in Colossians. He says he's the exact representation he's the visible exact image of the invisible Elohim. So even Paul is talking about the two roles of the Most High in Colossians 1. So even Paul is referencing the the two powers concept there in Colossians 1. And guys, if you don't believe me, you can look at the Aramaic New Testament right here. They paraphrase son as Elohim or Elua. Okay. So this is not talking about a human son father relationship. Okay. Whether it's the Etheridge, whether it's the Boucher, doesn't really matter. So it says here, no man has seen Elua at any time. The only begotten Elua, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared. So the Aramaic and Hebrew culture would have understood this. The Semitic culture would have understood that if Yahushua is saying, I'm the only begotten son of the Father, they would have understood that he's making himself one with the Father. Hence why the Pharisees, what do they say after he says it? We don't stone you for a good work. We stone you because you make yourself, as a mortal man, you make yourself the same or one with the Father, with the Most High. So they're stoning him for blasphemy, okay? Because as a mortal man, if I said that, that would be blasphemy. I would be setting myself up as a deity, okay? As a mere mortal man, okay? So even the Hebrew culture, they had this understanding of that's one way of committing blasphemy. Now, what they didn't understand was Yahushua really wasn't committing blasphemy. He was the Almighty in human form. So basically, Yahushua was not lying. He was telling them the truth. And they thought he was lying. They did not accept that he was born of a virgin. They thought Joseph was his biological father. So in their mind, they thought they were right for trying to stone him. They were like, oh, well, this guy, man, he's trying to make himself, a god. And so when you understand that historical context, it makes a little bit more sense. Okay. Because usually the non-oneness people, they'll give you this spiel. And I'm not trying to make fun of them, but they'll usually give you this spiel like, oh, they just misunderstood what he said. What do you mean? What do you mean they misunderstood? He said he was the son of the Father. It wasn't like he said something super hard to understand. Okay, and if they misunderstood what he meant by that, why didn't he say anything to them? It doesn't make any sense. It logically does not make any sense. To believe in what's known as Arianism or whatever you want to call it, Unitarianism, Arianism, all that nonsense, you that Yahuwah has to be the Father can only be Yahuwah. You completely have to ignore like almost the whole book of John or reinterpret the book of John like the way these stupid books like the Gospel Kaledi does, okay? Or you just ignore the book of John and Paul's letters because they're the two books in the New Testament where even critics of the Bible admit it, that's where we get this belief from. There's no way around it. There's no way. Like it's there right in your face. So most critics of the New Testament manuscripts will say, well, see, you only get that from John and Paul. Show that to me in Mark or Luke or whatever. Even the New Agers admit that. They admit it. They know that that's the books in the New Testament that you can get this correct understanding from. So they try to pigeonhole you and they'll say, oh, well, show us in Mark that he's saying that. Showing us in Luke and this and that. A lot of these Gnostics will say that. And even Revelations, you have to ignore Revelations. So where we were at here, Revelations 1:8. Okay. I am the first and the last, he who was, who would come, the Almighty. Okay. And we talked about too, I mentioned that Revelations 1:18, the same chapter, talks about that Yahusha will live forevermore and all that. Isaiah 41:4. So I think we stopped at I am the last, I endure forever. Isaiah 48:12. Revelations 1:8. I am the Aleph and Tav, says Yahuwah, he who is, he who is to come, the Almighty. The Wycliffe, which is interesting. By the way, Wycliffe is the Vulgate, just to let people know. Who worked and did these things, calling generations at the beginning. I am Yahuwah, I am the first, I am the last. Revelations 1:10-17 says the same thing. I came on the Spirit on the day of Yahuwah, or Yahuwah's day, and I heard a loud voice from the trumpet behind me saying, to that which see, write in a book, send to the seven assemblies, Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea. No. Never stop. Not against you. All right, and so and there I turned and see the voice was speaking with me. Having turned, I saw the seven golden lampstands. In the midst of the seven lampstands stood one like the Son of Man. So again, it says here, now notice this. It says, I saw one stood one like the Son of Man. So I believe this is Yahusha here. Now, this is the Son of Man from Daniel 7:9. Okay, so you have him clothed with a robe, okay, girded, golden belt, okay, his hair like white, like wool, okay, like snow. His eyes were a flame of fire, and his feet were fine brass, as is refined in a furnace. His voice was the sound of many waters, and he had in his right hand seven messengers, seven stars. Out of his mouth proceeded a sharp two-edged sword, and his countenance was the sun shining in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as it were dead. He put his right hand on me, saying, do not fear, I am the first and the last. Revelations 22:13. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Okay. So again, the first and the last, Aleph and Tav, Alpha, Omega. The Father and the Son both are the Aleph and Tav, Alpha and Omega. Okay, whoa, we're about to get to a big topic here. Okay, we might want to cap this part one today off at this, only because this is gonna be a lengthy part here. Trying to think if there's something that I wanted to mention from this last part we just read. So I think there was something missing here. All right, so show the two-edged sword. Just trying to remember if there was anything here. Oh yeah, Daniel 7:9. My bad. I just had a brain fart. Okay. All right. So Daniel 7:9, right? It talks about the Son of Man character. I would put Daniel 7:9 here, which I believe first Hanuk as well. I think it's in chapter 72. I would have to just double check that after this recording. Um, this is a pre-existent version of the visible version of the Father. So when Yahusha calls himself the Son of Man all the time, he's referring to himself in the third person. And he's talking about how the Son of Man, was supposed to suffer these things. The Son of Man is riding on the clouds, right? The cloud rider of Daniel 7. The cloud rider that comes in the esteem of Yahuwah. Now, again, if you go back to Isaiah, was it 40 or 41, Mom? Yahuwah says, I do not share my esteem with no one. So how can Yahusha If those people are right and say he's not the Father, he's a separate being, how can he come in the power of the Almighty when he talks about his second coming? So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Okay. So it says, verily, I believe this is when Caiaphas rips his garments. Again, why is he ripping his garments after he's saying that? Verily, I say to you, go ahead, brother, while I look for this.
And just with the esteem of Yahuwah, it was one of the very first verses we read in the doc. You know, if they had known, right, they wouldn't have killed the esteem of Yahuwah. If Yahusha is called the esteem of Yahuwah, and you separate Yahusha from Yahuwah, right, and he says he doesn't share his esteem with anyone, then what is the esteem of Yahuwah? If Yahusha is separate, then does Yahuwah not have any esteem? Is all the esteem of Yahusha separated from Yahuwah? Does that make sense? It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah. Right here's the quote, Matthew 26:64. The Caiaphas, the high priest, actually rends his garments after he says this. Okay. So he says here, verily I say to you, you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming on the clouds of heaven. Okay, so this is the cloud rider, Daniel 7 reference, him as that cloud rider, as the pre-existent Son of Man character. Okay, as literally at the right hand of power. So literally you could say coming with the power of the Father. If the Father doesn't share his esteem, how is he coming in the power of the Father? And again, I mean, we don't even have time for this today yet. We could possibly do it in a part 2, 3, or 4. But again, and he talks about how he is, Yahusha says, all judgment is given to me. I judge the living and the dead. But like, wait a minute. Yahuwah is the one that's supposed to be the eternal judge, right? There's one judge, Yahuwah. Okay, so how is Yahusha being able to give an authority to judge all mankind? If he's not the Father and this creation is only the creation of the Father, how would that make sense? So there's a lot of things I hope you guys are just thinking about today. I mean, this was just a little taste, hopefully Yahuwah willing, Yahusha willing, we'll have another day to really go deep. No. And I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us. That will be the end of part 1. Yahuwah, Yahusha willing, we'll get into who is the firstborn son of Yahuwah. This is a huge subtopic within this topic to get into. That's why I kind of wanted to end the part 1 here, because there's going to be a lot of verses about this. There's going to be a lot of verses about the firstborn son, how Yashrel is called the firstborn son, and Yahusha as well, and how a lot of people get confused in the book of Isaiah. So I think we should save that for next time. So hopefully you guys got just a taste of this topic and why this topic is important. And I appreciate all the great feedback I got from, we got from the community posts last night. I appreciate John Truth for commenting. I appreciate the support there, brother. So Shabbat Shalom. Oh, it's not Shabbat Shalom. We're not on the Shabbat. Shalom, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great first Yom of the week. Or are we on the first Yom? Let me see here.
No, we're on the
Second Yom of the week here. So, Shalom, everyone. Yahuwah willing. See you guys next time.
And she would be third, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.